Well, hey, everybody, welcome back to Unplayable, your favorite gaming podcast and content out there. After one episode, we know we've stolen your hearts and your minds and your imaginations. Welcome back. How we doing, people?
Doing pretty good. Chilling. Been playing games recently, specifically Flesh and Blood. I did a draft on Thursday night. That was really fun. Other than that, video games and not. Actually, I played a new board game called Earth the other day, which is really cool. It's kind of like Wingspan, but it's just
called
like
Earth?
Yeah, it's like you're creating your own. Like you have a planet and you're kind of like generating like different plants and trying to get animals to come habitat at your planet and all that kind of stuff.
Great,
It's pretty cool.
like an ecosystem or something.
Yeah, exactly,
Cool.
exactly. And it's like different fungi, and then like I don't know if you've played Wingspan before, but like you put eggs on birds so they're laying eggs or whatever, and on this you're like stacking things on top of each other to represent like the growth of the plants on the card and stuff like that. It's kind of cool. It's very similar to Wingspan if you played it.
Nice.
I do need to try Wingspan. I've heard great things.
It's a fun
The
game.
concept is weird to me, but I've heard good things about the actual game, which to me, it's like it has to be good because it's a game about birds. So, like, how does that succeed if it's not like an amazing game?
I think that's
one
the
reason why it
anomaly.
does. I think the theme is one reason why it does succeed is because it's like so like unexpected that would be the type of game that exists around birds as a theme. That like it kind of I feel like some of the virality of that game was just sort of like, oh, it's a game about birds, but it's also like this kind of modern take on a Euro game, I feel like.
Yeah.
And so this is why we have to make the Ted Lasso game right here, right?
Yes, exactly. The Ted Lasso TCG.
Oh, so hear me out. We have birds.
Yeah.
What do you do with that?
Hey, and we got new Ted Lasso episodes coming out weekly right now. We can like start making cards live on this show every. Like we can make a Zava card now from.
This is now the Ted Lasso, the TCG, the podcast.
We had more than one comment on our YouTube video saying they would totally buy a Ted Lasso card game. So I'm all for it.
ChatGPT 4 design it for us.
Yes.
If we could have like them put like the believe sign that they have on there, like imprinted into a couple of the cards, like those are like the collector pieces of it. That'd be sweet.
Instead of getting a foil card in your pack, you get a believe card.
Right.
Yeah.
This is great. What about the rest of you guys? What else are you playing?
I played a lot of Marvel Snap this week, as usual. Tried to hit Infinite, but I'm pretty sure they have my account locked, so I can only hit 85.
Oh no.
I don't know what's wrong, but
What'd you do? Are you cheating again, Mike?
no, I just can't win.
Yeah, that's tough. And it's skill-based matchmaking, I'm assuming. So it's like once you get to 85, it's just like you're playing nothing but Infinite.
The matchmaking's pretty messed up, and it's a weird mix of you're playing people from Infinite, but you're also playing against a lot of bots, and bots oftentimes do really weird things that you don't expect.
Mm.
Do you
Hey,
feel like
speaking of-
oh, good.
Well, I was just gonna say, speaking of cheating, do you guys remember when Mike was on stream and a cheater was caught playing against Mike and it went viral across the
I
nation?
sure remember that.
How can you forget?
Mike was
Those
one
are
of the
cool.
biggest
Strange
cheating
time.
scandals of all time.
Oh, Vader Saber.
Destiny, man. Those are the days.
I still can't believe that happened, but
Yeah, that was wild. Jim, what about you? What kind of gaming have you done?
I mean, per usual, following the friends, pretty much the Marvel Snap on the phone, as well as a little Clash Royale, but that's very casual. I feel like every time I play Marvel Snap, though, I get like the most ridiculous like zones to try to play into, and it's always perfectly countered by whatever the opponent has. It like perfectly is set up for them. We'll get the one with like the 9-power monster, and he's like, "Here's a Shang-Chi. Sorry about it." Like every single time. So, I mean, I've been hovering in like the 40s, just for full honesty. But I'm also running a Sentry deck, like objectively one of the worst cards, just to see if I can make it happen. And then,
Red Hero Dream
with Flesh and Blood as well. So that was a good old time with old D House down here.
What a great transition to my game experience. Yeah, the only games I played this week were ironically Flesh and Blood. I think of the first Flesh and Blood games I played in. I was trying to remember the last time we played like that. I know you played, but that I played, it was probably almost a year, maybe shorter. I don't know, but yeah, Jim got a box of Outriders, and we played some Sealed.
Outriders.
And
Outriders.
Sounds like a cool set.
oh, is it Outsiders? Wait, what's the name of the set?
Outsiders.
Is it really? I definitely thought it was Outriders.
I can't believe I'm watching this guy.
Podcast. This is why I said when we start talking about Flesh and Blood, I'm just gonna let you guys take over. But we did play some Sealed, and my first game back, I did win. I beat Jim, guys.
Nice.
Thank you.
Let's go.
I should have worn my Star Wars Destiny top 8 medal today for. It was super fun. We did play a second game in which I lost. I had to let Jim get one win on the day, but
I appreciated that greatly.
yeah, you're welcome. But it was fun. So that was good. I think in other gaming news, which we're going to talk about Flesh and Blood again in a minute. And other gaming news, Disney Lorcana released some more previews of cards. Still no rules, but we got cards. We woke up to a spoiler of how do you say? Is it Cheshire the cat or Cheshire? I don't remember how to actually say it.
Well, I think maybe it depends on where you're from in the world, but I think it's the Cheshire cat.
Cheshire cat.
There you go.
What's he do?
Oh,
We don't know yet.
yeah, we don't know.
He's a 3 cost. He has no power. But
Yeah.
when he's challenged, he banishes the attacker and himself, or the challenger and himself.
Ooh, that's the
Which
matter.
to me
So-
screams that he's got some pips on him. That
Yeah. He's got to be either worth killing or not killing, or worth challenging,
Thank you.
like on its own, because it's the icons
So
and stuff
easier.
are so good. Oh, we should have been professional and pulled these up on a.
professional.
This podcast.
Mike, come on.
Or the other possibility is that there are cards and effects that force your opponent to challenge your stuff.
All right. Like a card, like an instant or a spell that's like choose 2 people or choose an enemy to challenge one of yours or whatever, something like that.
Mhm.
I could see that being a thing.
Here we go. We need to get professional.
Thank you.
Okay, here we go. What was the other one? Goofy? Was Goofy the other one?
Yeah.
There we go. Let's go.
I think.
Let's go.
Oh, there we go.
So
Look at
here are our two previews from the week, I guess. We may have had. I can't remember when Lady Tremaine got dropped. Maybe that was after. I
I
don't
think I
remember.
remember
But
that one.
Yeah, we definitely didn't talk about it, but I might have been out when the last.
I
podcast-
think one of the most interesting things is like, can you see my my mouse on here?
No.
Okay, never mind.
I can see the.
No,
you
I can
can.
see it. I can
Yeah.
see it.
Like the ring around the number. So like on Lady Tremaine doesn't have the like gold
Oh, interesting.
around the block, and this does on Goofy.
Yeah.
I want to know what that's about. I'm so
Yeah,
curious.
same. People have all kinds of theories, but I don't pay attention
Interesting.
to any of that.
Yep.
So in like their other game, that symbol, the like circle symbol, is power, and power is like the resource that you use to play things. So I don't know what that might indicate here, but if they use similar iconography, then it would be that.
Interesting. I'm also now
Yeah.
noticing that the watch has that cool border on the outside, the
Mhm.
gold border. I don't know if that's just because it's an item card or because of something else, but it looks pretty neat.
Oh yeah, that is cool.
Is Lady Tremaine the only one that doesn't have a?
No,
They have-
there's a handful.
There's a
if
couple.
you scroll
Here's
down,
Magic
there's-
Mirror doesn't have it. Hades doesn't have it.
So interesting.
Dragonfire doesn't have it.
Yeah, I think
Yep.
that's it. Yeah.
Just
Interesting.
weird, man. But we did see like maybe there's a Gamma coming up this month in April. So there's some theories that maybe it'll rules will drop right before at Gamma later in April, but
They'll probably be doing demos at Gamma, so we'll learn. If they don't drop the rules, we'll learn how to play from people that played it there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's probably fair.
I can't wait until people are talking about how Goofy is OP and needs to be nerfed.
Yeah. But other than that, other than Lorcana, I'm still curious about Star Wars Shatterpoint from Atomic Mass Games. Still, like a bunch of new demo videos came out from Adepticon. So I've been watching those, trying to get a feel for the gameplay. And then at Adepticon on Sunday, after we recorded, they did like a presentation for all their games, the X-Wing Armada and Legion. And then they basically kind of previewed the expansions they're going to release in the first year. And there were some like really cool ones. I think the very first one they showed was like the Dathomir pack with like Mother Talzin, Savage Press, and like the Night
cool.
Sisters. Or not Night Sisters.
You got a screen share to throw up?
Gosh, okay. Yes,
we were not prepared to be professional today, Mike. This is not a professional podcast or channel.
But in this case, I feel like I need to see what these look like.
Yeah, they look good. They look good.
Yeah, here we go. I'm pulling up a random someone else's website.
I don't think they've released an article with actual pictures. They're probably all pictures from the slideshow.
I think you're right.
I guess. Yeah.
So DysonCardboard.com, whoever you are, we're giving you some free promo here. Can you see that?
Yeah, we can see
that
it.
Looks awesome.
Yeah.
Dathomirians.
Yeah. Which I thought, oh, that's neat. Because we had Mother Talzin in Star Wars Destiny, but I've never seen her featured in any other game.
Yeah. That's sick.
But there's some other cool ones. You've got like Cad Bane and Aurra Sing.
Nice.
Mace Windu. I know you're a big Mace Windu fan, Jay.
If I ever play this game, that's who I'm playing.
Yeah. Got the Queen.
Is this all focused on... Oh, okay. I guess this answers my question.
Yeah, it's
all Clone Wars focused.
It's actually kind of a unique setup because like you come to the game with like a squad of like... or basically like... I forget the terminology, but it's like basically like 2 squads and they have to be from the same era. Or the squad itself comes with a primary unit, a secondary unit, and then supporting unit. So like the primary is probably like in this is probably, or actually probably like Luke is probably the primary, Leia is probably the secondary, and then you've got these supporting units. I'm just guessing at this point, but they have to come from the same era, so you can't mix and match. But I think of your 2 units, I think they can be from different eras. But
interesting.
This one was pretty cool with the Inquisitors. You've got like...
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah. I thought that was like... That's a unique little take on some of that, but...
Nice. They look cool. I'll literally never play this game and I'll never paint these things, but they look cool.
Yeah, I agree.
That's totally fine. I just find it really interesting, and I do like minis games sometimes. So.
I'll play someone else's if they've got it put together and painted, but I'm not doing it.
There you go. We'll do it at Gen Con.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm unless you're too busy grinding games of Lorcana.
Yeah, and winning the Keyforge National Championship. Duh.
Yeah. That one's all you.
All right. You guys want to talk about some Flesh and Blood? Jim?
I think Jim does.
Take it away.
I do. It's been my favorite card game for a while. So I've been deeply enjoying it. Yeah, the new set, not Outriders. I know it's a common misconception, but Outsiders just dropped. And it's been a fun, limited format so far. So I've only tried Sealed just a couple games with David, but just even kind of cracking packs open, seeing what's in there. I feel like I was just like rushed through the commons real quick. So just the love of Sealed to like actually have to care again about every single one of those and coming up with like how do I defeat my friend has just been really enjoyable and fun. So yeah, that's just kind of the launch point there. I know there was a big tournament where our girl Azalea took down first and second. So the meme is
Rangers.
David only plays Rangers, by the way. So he's for the triumphant return there. So legless over here.
It is Legolas's fault, man. When I was a young, impressionable middle schooler, seeing Legolas on the big screen in Lord of the Rings, it's just, how could you not?
Yeah,
100%.
that's very true. From a fairly new Flesh and Blood player's point of view, Azalea meta does not sound very fun.
Well, she wasn't ever playable before, so it's hard for me to tell. I mean, she'll have a lot of on-hit effects, but I don't think she's... Number one, you played Dromai. Dromai
Yeah, I know.
destroys Azalea. At least in my opinion, she does.
Yeah.
But I would rather be playing against Azalea because it'll be a faster game than playing against Oldhim.
Yeah,
Or Icelander.
Nightmares are the one game that I played against an Azalea, and they played like knock the death whistle into the one that like makes all your stuff loose go again like 4 times in a row.
Oh yeah, that's rough. And Remorseless is even worse if it hits, where you take a damage every time you take an action. If you have like 6 dragons out, it's like 6 damage just hit with them. But yeah, she's pretty good. I will see if she stays viable. I think that as the meta shapes with the new set, we'll find counters against her. Specifically, like just throw some D reacts in your deck, and you won't have to worry about the dominate. And then like Channel the Bleak Expanse absolutely wrecks Rangers, not being able to reveal cards on the top of your... Neither player can reveal cards, draw cards, and there's one more thing you can't do. I can't remember what it is, but she can't opt with her Crossbone Skull Wrap. She can't draw cards off 3 of a kind or Art of War if you're playing that, stuff like that. And it really hurts Lexi because she can't... Oh, it's Fuse. You can't... Or no, I think Reveal is the Fuse one. It wrecks Lexi because she can't fuse because you can't reveal cards.
Share on the screen like a professional would.
I haven't even done that yet. Oh, share. Okay, let me find it.
Yeah,
Jim, you can keep talking while I find.
I think the other piece that I like about Rangers playing against it is just kind of like a skill check going into it. Like if you play against an Oldhim or one of those just like very kind of grind it out, you almost feel like there's nothing you can really do. Where Azalea, if you can have a few things teched in there, I think it is a lot more understanding like when to overblock, when to hold back, and it's just that cat and mouse game the whole time. Where some of the other ones just feel so just like awful to lose to. You're just like, I didn't have a chance no matter what I teched in here or brought. Azalea feels a little bit more like you can play into it, but it's still great. It's still a fun deck. But yeah, I think the classic Ice still wrecks it. Could be totally valid as far as like Oldhim and Icelander still staying super strong in the meta. So
okay, here's Channel the Bleak Expanse if you can see it now. Heroes can't draw cards, reveal cards, or search your deck. So you can't do knock the death whistle to search for an arrow. You have to be a ice character to play this. So Icelander, Oldhim, or Lexi. But like specifically was thinking about this because Michael Hamilton has won a lot of championships with Icelander, and he lost to who was playing Azalea twice at this big tournament. And I think he will probably include this in his deck going forward just for Azalea because she seems like she's going to be pretty good. Azuri was also in the top 8 at this tournament, and she's new in this set. And their ability is here. Let me pull it out for you. Let me look it up. Azuri.
Professional styles.
I love this.
If I can spell it right. Okay, so once per turn attack reaction. So this is after you've played an attack onto the combat chain. You can do this as a reaction. You banish a card from your hand face down. Turn the card, banished card face up. If it's an attack card that costs 2 or less, you put that attack card. I should probably just read it. Put target attacking card with stealth from the active chain on the bottom of your deck, and then put the banished card onto the active chain as the attacking card, which is kind of very mind gamey, which makes it really hard to defend against this character. I don't know, like Dory, I've compared her to playing against Dory, where once you figure out how to block against her, then it's a little bit easier to play. But I think this is even harder to kind of decide how to block against, because there are effects that punish you for blocking, and there's effects for punishing for not blocking. Whereas Dory's, all of her abilities just punish you for blocking.
Mhm.
But if you don't block, you know what's going to happen. She's just going to get a counter on her sword.
Isn't this also like very good for like resource advantage? Like you're banishing, or I guess
zero cost.
Yeah, you're putting a 0 cost card down on the bottom of your deck that you played into the combat chain, so you didn't pay any resources to play that card, and then you're not paying the resources for a card that costs potentially 2 to replace it. So is that like, am I reading this correctly?
Sort of.
The card advantage is about the same, because you're taking a card from the combat chain and not using it. So essentially, you're paying a card to play that card
from your hand, essentially.
Right.
We were trying to figure out, was there
Seems
any
good.
reason to have it banished face down first and then flip it face up, or did they?
Yeah. So the instant window is after you've banished it face down, but before you reveal it.
Okay, so they can respond before you show what it is.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay. I was like, that just seems like the most unnecessary wording I've ever seen on a card. Put it face
really-
down, then flip it face up.
I feel like that's one of the upsides and one of the downsides of Flesh and Blood is that it's like very sort of like rules technical, where like you have to really know the ins and outs of the timing windows and stuff like that to understand how you can maximize your play. And I'm really bad with that. So
yeah. Like I think when I was learning to play, like playing on felt table at the time, because Talishar wasn't really a thing when I started playing, was so helpful to figure out those windows, because I'm like, oh, there's a thing I could do right here, like, and just like because felt. But I should explain what I'm. If you don't know what felt table is, it's basically playing against like a kind of a bad AI, but it's good enough to like help you learn the game. So if you ever wanted to try Flesh and Blood, if you're listening to us and you haven't tried it, to me it's like one of the greatest places to start, because you can sit there and learn how things work without like the pressure of like keeping up with someone or meeting up with someone or whatever. It was a great teacher.
yeah,
I 100% agree, because that's how I started playing it and learning how to play it too. Because this is a complex game, especially up front. So, like, it's useful to even just get in there and try all the different heroes so you can see what you like and experience it.
That's exactly what I did. Is after I played a couple games with you, I hit felt table and played every single blitz deck against the AI and figured out which decks kind of fit the best for me.
Yep.
It was definitely very useful.
Yeah, way to go.
Yeah, so there's a lot of... So talking about, I guess we can go into the draft or limited aspect of this set, because I think that they designed this set specifically to be a good limited set. Some people didn't like the limited in Uprising because it felt I guess whoever got to go second would win half the time. I don't know. People just didn't like it. I thought it was fine, but some people didn't like it. This set was designed specifically to be good for draft, and I think they definitely succeeded in what they were trying to do. From what I've played so far, I've done a sealed event at the pre-release. I did a draft this week, and so far, both were really fun to me. So they have 6 heroes that you can do sealed limited with, 2 of the 3 different classes: Ranger, Assassin, and Ninja. My first, I guess I can talk a little bit about my sealed event. My sealed event was playing Azuri is basically what I went with, and I went 2-1. I had a lot of fun. Azuri was really cool to play. Like, it was interesting, but like I didn't look into the set at all before I went, and I read her ability. I looked at my sealed pool, and I had like no arrows. I had no like 1 or 2 attacks for Benji, which is the ninja. So I was like, I guess I'm going assassin. And I ended up playing her. And it was really fun to just kind of like figure out different combos. So a couple of the combos that I experienced as I played each game is, so like Isolation is a assassin card. I could pull it up. Isolation. How do you spell isolate? There we go. Oh, it's just Isolate. It's a stealth card with Dominate. And when I first looked at this card, I was like, what is the point of having this? Like, it's a 3 block, so they're never going to block with more than one card. But what I learned is when you play this, they have to declare their blocks, and then with Azura, you slide in a card, so they can't overblock. So you can guarantee a hit effect will happen when you slide in a new card. So like Death Touch is a really good card that's on hit effect. I'm going to pull these up as I talk about them so people can see. Death Touch is, it can't be played from Arsenal, but you can play it with her ability since it's being played from the Banish Zone. Or technically, it's not even being played, it's being replaced in. And when it hits, you create a Frailty, Inertia, or Blood Rot. You get to pick. And it's a 6 attack if it's red, 5 attack if it's yellow, 4 attack if it's blue. I think all 3 versions are really good in her deck because if you play the Dominate card, they can't overblock, and then you can slide any 3 of them in, and it's going to be a guaranteed hit. That's one of the cool little combos that I learned. And then another combo is like, you don't know how to block, at least early on, you're not going to know how to block against her. So if you don't block, you can slide and cut down the size and punish them for not blocking. They lose a card because cut down the size reads, if this hits, when this hits a hero, if they have 4 or more cards in hand, they discard a card. And it's a 6 attack, which is huge. And then there are other cards in the set that punish you for blocking. So if you have one of each in your hand, you can wait to see what they block or don't block and then slide whichever one in you want. So that's kind of my experience with my first pre-release. You guys did some sealed games. What heroes did you guys play?
So I started out trying to go ninja, which for sealed is tough to do. So you have to have enough of a very specific type of card that is like a blue pitch, so just 3 resources, and also cost 0 to kind of like make the ninja's turn. And that's hard to pull in a sealed area, but I'm sure in draft it's like if you're going to go ninja, you just know grab those cards kind of thing. Like you don't care what any of the card actually says. It's just pitches blue, 0, good to go. But I attempted that in sealed against David played Arachne both times, and I'll let him kind of share a little bit about like what that kind of play style felt like. But yeah, trying to like combo things and find that like 0 pitch to swing the weapons was tricky. It felt very just like not optimal as far as like the plays that I have to make or the things that I have to block with. Like I'd have to block my red attacks just to keep those going, to try to do the like death by paper cuts idea. So yeah, I played Katsu, tried to do, I had a few like surging strikes in there, which is kind of like the combo starters, and then a few gust waves as well. But even still, it was tough to kind of like string them together in that first game, which probably just how masterfully David played Flesh and Blood. So.
An interesting thing that I discovered so far is that none of the armor pieces, like in the previous sealed and draft of Uprising, you kind of wanted to get those quells early because they felt really good. None of the armor pieces in this feel like I feel like you can play naked and still do well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I
just want to clip that statement real quick and like preview that. For
no armor.
You can play naked and be totally fine.
You might distract your opponent and then just throw them off. You never know.
Clip, don't worry.
So yeah, I think even in that game, I had 3 pieces of the Seeker's equipment, and so I think I combined all 3 of them together to block 3 damage and opt 3. But that was like the best thing I could figure out to do for pitching a card to block 3, like a little bit later. So they didn't feel great. So yeah, I totally agree that the equipment is good if you have it, but definitely like don't pick the hero just because of it, like in previous sets.
Yeah. What about you, David? You played good old Arachne.
Big ugly stanky face.
There you go.
I think is his technical name. Yeah, Arachne. There it is. Big ugly stanky face. Am I right?
You're not wrong.
All right. Looks like Sir Christopher on a Friday night. So yeah. All right. So context here, people. I have not played Flesh and Blood. I did not know any of the heroes. Well, I did know the heroes because they brought back Azalea and Katsu and Benji which I thought was a really cool idea because I was thinking one of my things about playing Tales Limited when I played. I was like, it just felt like, man, you have 3 choices. Like, it just felt so much different than when we were drafting Destiny, where it was like, oh, there's like so many different ways it might go. And I like the variety. So I like that there were 6 options. I went with this dude because one, I've obviously never played Assassin, and I've always played Ranger. And then 2, his abilities seemed really straightforward for coming back and playing that. Oh, first card of stealth gets go again. It's like, great. Let's do that.
Easy.
So it was super simple. I had less brain tax for a new player, or coming back. And so just got a bunch of stealth attacks and tried to look for a good kind of like balance of blues and yellows and reds, and kind of threw it together without much thought. What's the Post Malone card called, Jim?
Oh, I'm trying to remember. Hold on.
Do you know what I'm talking about, Jay?
Yeah.
This card, I don't know. It's not specific to Assassin. I just don't remember what it's called. But anyways,
Assassin Ranger card.
That card was awesome. Ended up in my arsenal a few times to like just pop out of, like, I think that's how I won at the end, was being able to slide that in there and save it for a couple turns. There it is.
Post Malone.
Yeah, so it's just like one of those ways. Because the ironic thing, the thing that I liked is that both of our sealed games ended up down to like 1 health versus 1 health, and I won the first one and Jim won the second one, which was like, man, that's really cool. I love that we can get into that kind of those mind games. Had a couple of analysis paralysis moments where I was like doing the math in my head, and I hate doing math. And Jim knows this.
Games hates math.
It's yeah. I'm like, I just don't want to do math, but I play games like this, and it's like, and eventually I get so tired, my brain hurts, and I make bad plays. But yeah. So it was fun. I think, which we can keep talking specifically about Flesh and Blood, but that's what kind of made me. It got my brain moving toward like this kind of general concept about games that might appeal to our wider audience of like constructed versus limited in the games that we play. And I think I kind of realized in this process of like you guys playing Flesh and Blood, want to do some Flesh and Blood content, that if I'm drafting or playing sealed, like I'm at least 3 times more likely to want to play than if I have to build a constructed deck that I'm taking into account the meta, and I'm taking into account a sideboard. I love sideboard for high competitive events, but I hate it personally for, again, the brain tax of just like, I have to think through every scenario and every matchup. And then then I have to remember like, okay, what do I slide in? What do I take out? And like that just does not, that is not fun for me in a game. Like, but so when it came to like, oh, hey, here's your 6 packs, build a deck that, yeah, you might have some janky stuff in there or some less than optimal stuff. And then, between rounds, you could slide some stuff out or whatever, but nothing is like perfectly optimized. It screamed a little bit more like Keyforge to me, like where I'm like, oh, sometimes the best Keyforge decks have bad cards in them because you can't do some of that. And I actually like that part of the game. So I guess I just had this epiphany where I was like, I might be more likely to play more Flesh and Blood if I only play limited and never even like think about constructed, which got me thinking about games in general. Like, is that true for anybody else out there that like, man, limited is like the idea of like draft or sealed? You can take the thing off the screen, by the way, Jay. But like, but just like this idea of like, am I alone in that? Hey, this idea of just drafting and making less than optimal stuff, like a kind of a contained game experience, like appeals to me so much more than else. But I know Jim is different. I'm curious, Jay and Mike, what you would say to that.
I think it's really interesting that, thinking about it now, that sealed Flesh and Blood is basically just buying a Keyforge deck. It's like the same thing. It's like you're just buying 6 packs and making a deck. It's Keyforge is buying a deck and it's just already put together for you and you just play. So I can understand why you like Sealed because it's very similar to the feeling of Keyforge. I think that's cool. I'm in a space where I actually enjoy really both of the formats, and I think it's really cool that Flesh and Blood has taken the approach of competitive events like nationals. You have to play a certain amount of draft rounds, and then you play competitive rounds. So you have to be good at both. You can't be good at you can't just net deck and autopilot a deck. You have to be able to on the fly draft a deck and play well in that environment with what you've drafted before you even get to the competitive CC standard format to play, which is interesting. I think it takes a lot of skill to play draft and sealed, especially draft. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. Mike?
Yeah. I like both. I have to be in the right mood to play constructed and like get really into deck building and stuff like that, because it is definitely more taxing. When I was playing Flesh and Blood more frequently, which I mean was pretty recently ago, I just started playing the game like 6 months ago. But I haven't yet sort of gotten to the point where I feel like I can build my own deck from scratch and have it be successful. So usually I'll sort of like look and see what's popular and maybe tweak like the decks that I find there rather than start from scratch, because it just seems super daunting for specifically this game. Other games I have a much easier time, like, creating a deck, because I feel like those games are a bit more similar to each other when we're talking about like, I don't know, Hearthstone or like even Destiny, like Magic. Like there's almost a shorthand of like, okay, you want generally this amount of this kind of card or this costed card. Flesh and Blood is so different from those games that it's like a little hard for me to wrap my head around. And then when
the
it
red,
comes
yellow,
to
blue resource stuff is like,
it's like you're
that alone is like a
totally
new thing that box in my brain doesn't exist.
Yeah, 100%. Like coming up with a ratio of, okay, I need like 12 blues and not 13 because this is why. Like that is not something that I really want to be thinking about. But I still enjoy the sort of creative element to it. So if I can sort of start from somebody else's sort of seed idea and then kind of tweak things around it, I definitely have more fun that way, at least when it comes to Flesh and Blood. And then on the limited side, that's always my favorite format. And I feel like it's almost the same in like video games as well. Like my favorite kind of video games are like roguelikes, where you're sort of presented with a new set of options every time, and it's like kind of up to you to make the best out of those options and come up with some kind of strategy that is successful. So maybe it's the degenerate gambler in me, but I love the sort of feeling of opening a new set of stuff, not knowing what I'm going to be able to find in there, and then having to sort of like work through the problem solving of, okay, how do I fit these puzzle pieces together in a way that actually like makes sense, or that I can potentially succeed with, or at least, do something cool with. So, yeah, I'm more of a limited player, I would say, just in terms of what I have fun with. But I think in the right mood and with the right game, I also really enjoy constructed.
What's the implication of needing to have a draft format? So, like, I tweeted this morning talking about, because Flesh and Blood previously, or currently still, only has one draftable set a year. And they're starting in 2024. They're going to have two instead. And I don't think that one draftable set is enough to last for a whole year for a lot of players. Like, I mean, even Magic the Gathering, the huge fan base, they have a lot of them only play draft and don't play CC or play Commander. Or if they do, they play Commander and not CC. So how important do you think it is for a game to offer some form of limited play? I mean, even Keyforge, it's got a standard version where you bring your own deck, but it even has a version of limited where you just buy a deck and you play it.
I think it's absolutely necessary, and I think it's absolutely necessary for reasons that people may not immediately think of, which is that it lets the publisher sell more packs, and that creates the like it gives the publisher the resources necessary to actually keep a game going like that, and to allow it to be successable. So like people, kind of don't love or tend to not love the hyper collectability of some of these games, and like, whales coming in and buying a bunch of boxes and sitting on them forever. But I mean, it really kind of does sort of help subsidize everybody else's experience. And draft is like, in my opinion, the best way to do that, because it gives people a reason to go and buy another booster pack, even though they have the entire set. And all of those resources then, a lot of those resources then go into improving the experience for that game, or making sure that it can keep going, or providing better support materials, cool game formats. They can, publishers can experiment a little bit more. So yeah, I have yet to see a game succeed that does not have a solid limited format.
Yeah, it's interesting this week. They didn't make a formal announcement, but the Keyforge World Championship, there's like basically an announcement of a date in November, and someone had emailed, because they kind of referenced like what the formats were going to be, and then they clarified over an email saying, yeah, there's going to be like an Archon Standard and Archon Alliance, which is basically bring your own deck, or like throw 3 houses from 3 different decks together. But there was no mention of sealed, and a lot of the community reacted and said, no sealed, like no limited play at like the World Championship. That just didn't feel correct. And it is different with Keyforge, because it's like, well, you could get stuck with like a bad deck and you're just kind of stuck, but there's like lots of ways around that. You could do 3 decks sealed, where you get 3 decks and you can play one, or you could do Alliance sealed, where you combine among your pool. And like a lot of the community was like, this just feels like we're missing something here. So even in a game like Keyforge, it was like, man, you sealed, you just can't do it without sealed.
Did they react to that at all? Ghost Galaxy?
Not yet. But this is in November, and this was a quick email. So I am curious, because they still have to announce all the vault tours and like national championships, and I have to imagine those will be have some sealed.
It's so surprising to me that would be omitted. It seems like such an essential format for Keyforge, especially.
Yeah.
Especially Keyforge, right? Like Keyforge is the ultimate.
That's like the whole premise of the product.
Yeah. But Jim, I do want to give you a chance to respond, because you never responded to the initial question of.
Oh yeah, definitely.
What I was talking about. Yeah.
I think even just kind of reflecting on what y'all were saying, I think like the roguelike games like Slay the Spire, things like that. I think when it's low stakes, I love that kind of idea of figure it out on the fly. Figure out the puzzle. But I think the reason I like deck building and like constructed kind of play is it feels like I'm figuring out like what this hero is supposed to be doing. Like if it's at its best, like what is it supposed to be doing? Where sometimes with sealed, it just feels like you kind of show up, like you're like makeshift weapons kind of hitting each other. It's still very competitive, and there's a ton of like strategy that goes into that. Even just what y'all were saying about like each card having like a pitch, like color to it for resources, trying to figure out all of that. Like there's still a ton of strategy, but just to try to figure out how to optimize or just kind of answer all of the questions that could be coming at you. To me, that's fun. I love the preparation. So I'd be coming in with like my sheet that has like every matchup. Here's what I'm sideboarding in. So you can do that. You don't have to like try to remember. You just literally have them all written down. So I love doing the prep, knowing kind of what my game plan is. And then it just feels like when I lose an event because of that, it's like, well, it was because I could have done something different. Like it felt like it was my own like prep work or thoughts or ideas more so than just like, bad draw, tough. I think Flesh and Blood is one of those cool games that it is very rare that you feel like you get like just drawn off the table. There's a couple like high roll kind of decks, but even still, you typically have something you can do against it or can tech against like that thing they're trying to do. For some other games like Keyforge, so many games are just like, okay, you did the thing, I guess I lose. Like that's just happened to me so many times. And there are a lot of games where I'm able to kind of barely get enough advantages to pull it off. But I don't know. For me, that's why I think I tend to like that a little bit more. But definitely see the value in both.
I think I agree with you when it comes to Flesh and Blood. Actually, I've only played one Flesh and Blood draft, but playing CC in Flesh and Blood felt infinitely better than playing drafts in Flesh and Blood. Mm-hmm. I wonder if it's just like how Flesh and Blood, the game, is sort of designed and set up, because it is so much about like your hero and sort of wanting to feel like they're able to do the thing that they're meant to do in a way, and being able to prep like Flesh and Blood feels much more chess like to me, and so I feel like as a game it probably does lend itself a little bit better to a constructed format.
That's probably right, because I mean every card in Flesh and Blood doesn't just do what it says. Like in the text box, like you can also use it as resources. You can also use it as defensive card, and but the decision trees like branch out so far, like as you start following these paths.
Brain tax is real for sure.
Yeah, which can be a little overwhelming at times versus like a more straightforward game. But Jay, what were you gonna say?
I think too it's dependent on how they design the set. So like this set feels like they designed everything around having a good draft experience. Like the way everything works with the dual classes, and then they have cards that are like you can't play this from hand, which can be played in both Ranger because they're arsenaling cards with arrows, and that's the whole game plan anyway. And then Assassin also has a mechanic that with the Zuri being able to play it, swap it in, and not have to play it and to get around that. Just like simple stuff like that, and then like the different tokens, how they affect the different heroes in different ways. Like you can just totally tell that their draft experience or their design was for draft in this set, whereas like Uprising, it felt like it was more, they were more worried about getting cool like constructed cards out than they were about making a good draft experience, and the draft was kind of like an afterthought. So I guess you should. What I'm saying is, Mike, you should try the draft for this, or the sealed, or whatever.
I think we're gonna try and do a little 4-person sealed fun thing, right? So.
Oh no! Now you committed to it publicly.
Now we have to do it.
Now we have to do
We
it.
might try. We'll see it.
Dang it. I figured I could just sit this out, but gosh. Okay. Yeah. So like thinking about. Like I guess maybe more towards Mike because you're following Lorcana stuff, but like, what would you hope to see in a game like Lorcana when you're thinking about like limited?
Oh, they have to have a limited format. If they don't, they're just like absolutely shooting themselves in the foot.
Does Pokemon have a limited format?
Oh yeah,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, Pokemon does. No, they
I've done more Pokemon drafts in my lifetime than I can even count at this point.
Yeah, I really do like 100% believe that every like expandable game that exists like this needs to have a limited format, and I would be more than shocked if Lorcana doesn't, and I'm sure I will be playing lots of Lorcana limited.
Okay, let me ask you this: how much do you think? So, like, you can tell when a game is designed to have a limited format and when it's not, right?
Yeah, like
so
Destiny.
how much do you think is required to have zero need to bring anything to the table when you play a limited format? So like Destiny, in order to play draft, you had to bring a draft pack with you, which had cards and dice in it.
Yep.
I think it has to be either you don't have to bring anything new, or the shop that you go play at has everything that you need. So for Magic, for instance, like you typically don't bring your own lands, even though like almost half of your deck is lands. Every local game store has a million lands for free to just use. Destiny, like you had to pay $20 for this draft pack and then bring it to every single draft that you ever do. It maybe if that draft pack is like a couple bucks and it's like if you forgot yours at home, you could just pay a couple bucks and buy one from the shop. Like maybe that's not the worst thing in the world. I think for tokens as well, it's like if you can just use dice for tokens, or if you could use, I don't know, if the shop has extra tokens that you can borrow or something like that, that's also can be fine. But I think the more things that a game asks you to bring from outside the game, from home, before you start playing at the table, the worse it is in general. Like the higher the barrier to entry, the less people will actually do it. So I think games should definitely keep that in mind.
How many? So like Keyforge, you just buy a deck and you play it. There are some tokens that you need though. So like stun tokens, and
I've run into that issue before too, where I've bought or just like grabbed a couple Keyforge decks, like bring it over to my brother's house and like forget all the tokens. And then it's like, well, how do we keep track of all this stuff now?
Yeah. Which like even just stuff like persistent damage staying on creatures like it, like that Magic kind of got around that because it goes away at the end. But I remember some people were like, is there persistent damage in Lorcana? What kind of, and it's like, okay, we've learned that there is. So the damage tokens are important to, have. So having tokens, it is something. It's a little less, having tokens is a little less of an ask than like the draft set with Destiny. Although I did love drafting Destiny. Like I always loved, like I never got bored of drafting Destiny. I there was a point where we were drafting every single week, and that was my favorite format. But it is like oh gosh, I have to have this thing in addition to the thing.
A counterpoint for that is when designing a game, you can design it intentionally to have tokens. So there is this secondary, third-party market of creating new tokens and these cool alt art tokens and stuff like that. Like Team Covenant does a lot of their tokens for all of FFG games, right? So how much, like, what's the line? Where do we draw the line with how many tokens are required? So like Keyforge, I mean, there's stun, there's amber, there's damage, there's shield tokens. If you want them, you don't have to use them. You can just, they go
in. Use shield tokens, Jay. That was an ignorant comment.
Okay, here we go. But there's a lot of tokens in Keyforge that you have to. There's ward, enrage. Yeah. So what's the line here?
No, I like that point though, because it's sort of a balance between, okay, if you have all these tokens and your goal is to, I guess like what is the external benefit of having those things? It's like maybe you get some better community engagement from people who are sort of making custom made stuff for your game, which I think is important and like helps build a sense of community in a weird way. But if ultimately there's too high of a barrier to entry to playing that format at all, then I think that's when the line has to be drawn.
And that's what I was worried about with Lorcana being $6 per pack. Is that going to be too much to draft for people? Like trying to get kids in there, like checking it out, because it's going to just appeal to a younger audience for sure. It's like, how do you tell them like, oh, give us $25 and you can play a draft here? Like with Destiny, it was like what, $3 a pack typically?
Yeah, I think so.
After the initial purchase of the draft set, it was like $10 every time you wanted to do it. So it was a lot easier to kind of think through, like, I could spend $10 for several hours of fun. Where now it's $6 a pack. What's that going to look like? I'm very curious.
Even mentioning that this week. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to make a joke. You could argue that $10 in 2016 is worth $25.
I was going to say, I went to the event the other night for Flesh and Blood, and it was like, there was a vote between sealed and draft. And sealed, I mean, even Flesh and Blood has increased their pack prices. Mm-hmm. It was like $25 to do sealed because it's 6 packs. And then draft is only 3 packs and it's like $12. So I'm like, dude, let's do draft. It's like half the price.
Yeah. I'm very curious to see how they're going to deal with that. I wonder if it's almost worth them like subsidizing the price if players are going to play draft, where it's like, okay, the packs separately are $6, but if you're going to draft, like maybe it's $15 draft for 3 packs. It's just something that, I mean, I guess it doesn't leave a lot of margin in there for the game stores, but I don't know.
Having people in there playing is probably more important than the few extra dollars that they would make off of a draft.
Yeah.
I would say.
Or maybe there's no draft mode.
There might not be. That would be a huge letdown.
A huge mistake, but it's possible.
The community will figure out how to do cube draft or something,
Mm-hmm.
They always do.
Or they'll do it post 2 years later like Destiny did and have to have a draft.
But at some point we're going to have to talk about collectability in games and
we definitely should. That'd be a good podcast.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Jim has to go get a haircut, so let's wrap it up.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's 2 o'clock.
This is the hat podcast, so you don't need to get haircuts. So
not for
you
the podcast, but for the rest of life outside of this, which unplayable is 90% of my life right now. But the other 10% is also 90%.
It's funny.
I did hear Jay say you can play naked and be fine. So
Yeah, just
Swear
the
it's gonna
hat.
full buzz it.
but you do have to wear the hat. I can't wait to just have that clip at the ready for whatever.
Here we go.
It's gonna be great. So thank you for that, Jay. All right, I guess we're done.
Yeah.
What are we talking about next time? Are we gonna talk about Destiny next time? Do we need to tease it?
Let's not
Maybe.
locked in. Let's not
We'll
put
see.
ourselves in a box.
If enough
Stay
people
tuned.
want us to talk about Destiny next time, we'll talk about Destiny.
Yep. Be sure
If
to.
you let us know what you want us to talk about in the
Oh,
comments.
yeah, that's good. There you go. We got some good comments. Tell us what you want to hear and what you.
We're
don't
gonna
wanna-
completely ignore you, but we
I'm
need
kind
some
of surprised
algorithm
anybody
boost.
wants to hear us talk about anything. So
Yeah.
We're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts now.
yeah,
so
rate us at least 4 stars.
twice. Yeah.
Don't rate us lower than
one
4
both times. That's fine, but at least do it twice.
We need to, I was thinking for our close, we need to every time we need to close with a card from a game we've played that's completely unplayable. It's what was it? What was it? Destiny? Was it Take Cover? Was it
that was good, I think.
that basic one? It was give your guy a shield or something.
Yeah, zero cost gray card, give it 1 shield, I think.
Or something
You
stupid.
could definitely play that on Qui-Gon deck.
It's you can't even. Yeah, there you go. You can't even play that in limited. You don't even draft that card.
Let's
So,
see. Did I
anyways.
have any unplayable cards in my draft the other day? I played at the draft I played Arachne. And he doesn't have good ways to arsenal cards, and I had a couple cards that buff an attack from arsenal, and I never had an arsenal. So that was kind of unplayable for me.
There you go. There you go. So you heard it here first. Equipment is unplayable. Play naked. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
I know.